All right. Well, let me do just a little wrap up on the Clvrngs. I have listened to the very end of the Clvrngs, so now I know. My big question was, well, who gets picked? Does certain people get punished? Do other people get off scot-free? Yes, exactly. Uh, Julia is sent off with her widowed sister, the two widowed sisters, to be widows together. Maybe they'll become happy again at some point, but she'll try not to ever show it. Harry does marry Florence. They decide, yes, let's get him married quickly this time. Let's try not to drag things out, because he's, as I think as his mother says, he's a flighty bit of tail there. That's not exactly what she says, but yes. Um, they Harry's father is now obviously because he's the eldest. He gets to be he is the Lord, though it's assumed Harry will then get to live off of it as well and become the Lord after him. But he's like, oh, well, then I'm going to need to have someone else be the head rector or whatever of the thing. And they say, well, give it to Mr. Saul, and Mr. Saul will marry Fanny, and that will go well, because now he won't be penniless, and now he becomes acceptable, which is sort of the whole thing of love and money. Julia gets punished for being marrying for money instead of love, but everyone's super happy, thrilled that Hugh and Archie sank without a trace. And yeah, it's interesting. Hermione is like, yeah, she's still like, she's forgotten all of her husband's faults, even his real coldness at the end there, and says like, oh, he did ask you back twice, Julia. It's like, yeah, he was a complete prick. Let's not talk about him together, okay? Not in reference to me, at least, please. And they seem to agree on that. So I can sort of see why this novel maybe isn't pumped forward as the example of a Trollope novel, because while it is well constructed in ways, it's also just got at the heart of it a cipher in Harry Clavering. You kind of lose respect for the women for actually caring about him. It is kind of it does seem to be more of like a pointed thing on just the whole thing of money, of that sort of thing. Actually, there's a really pointed thing where Harry and his father are talking about Mr. Saul and his kind of decency, and his kind of like him actually being somebody who actually does care for the poor and is kind of selfless, and is actually interested in being the kind of the spiritual leader for the people in this parish. And they're like, oh, can you believe he's really not our type? It's like, yeah, he really isn't your type, guys. He's of a far much greater worth than the two of you, and he is a very minor character, but he really throws them in the worst light possible. And I think I will think of that scene, and what I think Trollope is just very slyly is implying about most of the male, those two male characters there. The Burton family, they're actually doers. There's actually some respect there. It's interesting that Trollope is really interested in this moneyed class that don't work in what is a society of Victorians that are all about kind of industry and doing and inventing and science. And these are just all these kind of twerps who are like, thank goodness they had enough money, because they're really only good at being lords. They would be shit at actually having to make their own living or anything like that. So yes, yeah, okay. Well, as always, really interesting to do Trollope. I'm enjoying my year of the lonely trollops. Oh yes, I am. Even if I want to throttle Harry, or even if just not even like Phineas Finn. It's like Phineas Finn was a heartthrob. This is actually maybe like this is the Phineas Finn Mark One, and then we get Phineas Finn Mark Two with actual Phineas Finn, and then Phineas Finn redo. It kind of goes through some layers there. It's kind of interesting that way, definitely. All right, I'll stop.